The woman that you consider your type, let's say you married, but you got a type. The woman that you consider your type, was to pull up, butt naked, greased up. What you gonna do in a room with you? What you gonna do?
You can have the baddest wife on the planet and be a firm believer, very rooted in Christ, but you see a beautiful woman, you're going to be attracted. It's in our nature. There will be triggers that will start to tempt you to come back. Even before being a believer, like I used to have a friend who used to say, "How are you loyal? I don't understand how you do it." I'm like, it's easy. Just don't put yourself in a position to be tempted. It doesn't leave when you're married either.
You said to that young man or that person that is in that lifestyle.
First thing I would say is
today is a special day because if you guys don't know by now, the guest that we're having today, I know him. I've known him for a while. He is a friend. He is a father. He is an active man. He has his own business, and he's a servant of the Lord. He works in the local church. He's a leader, a father of two beautiful girls, and a husband to an amazing wife. And he's a musclehead, and I love him. I love him dearly, and I'm so happy he's here. I'm so happy that he is joining us today. We're going to have some interesting conversation, and I want to welcome the most country white person I know, yet the most Mexican man I know, because he's half Mexican, half white, JP, known as Joseph Phillips. Welcome, Joe.
thank you.
Yeah, so we did this about 2 years ago, but it didn't work out. I lost the footage, and I never got the chance to really put it out, but I'm so happy you're here because I wanted to talk to you about something, man. And I think the people want to hear this because you have shared in the past about your struggles with lust and pornography. And that's something that this channel, because I'm rebranding, and this ministry is going towards is helping men break addiction. Because outside of, if we're going to be a people that are impactful, because I do believe if as men, if we can get ourselves together, we can impact our families. Our families will impact communities. Communities impact societies. Societies impact nations. Nations impact, the entire world. And so I just want us to, kind of break the ice a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and just your story as to how you even got into that place when you were, tied up in addiction to porn.
Yeah, man. I remember the first time that I stumbled back into it. I mean, it was obviously something that I was raised in, like not raised in, but it was something that became a part of my life in my childhood. Stumbled across some Playboy magazines that my dad didn't know he still had from before he was a believer, from his worldly days, kind of stumbled across those as a kid, and sadly there used to be the old Cinemax.
What is Cinemax? Wait, are you talking about like TV? Yeah. Oh, late at night.
Just every Friday night, I'd stay up late. My parents didn't mind. I was usually for the most part decent kid, but I don't remember what age it started. I just know it was always like, the late night after dark TV shows, and they would come on and you get pornographic content. And that's kind of where it started, along with like the Playboy magazines and stuff like that. And that's kind of where it started, right? And it's just one of those things, you get so callous to the feeling, like the shame and the guilt, and almost to a degree, you almost start to enjoy the thrill of doing something in secret. I think as a kid, like it's secretive, it's new, and yeah, man. So, and then of course it just carried into my adulthood. It carried into my adult life. I remember when I got married, I stopped for a time because I was married. I met my wife. We weren't married for the first couple of years. We weren't believers, but you're with a woman, you no longer have much interest in that. But at some point, the thoughts came back, kind of looked back into it, picked it back up, became another habit again. And eventually it kind of carried over and began to cause problems with my marriage down the road.
When you first got exposed to it as a child, because I remember when I first got exposed, what were you thinking? Like, what was the first thought where you were like, this is new, this is interesting, I like this? What was the thought that went through your mind the moment you saw those things? Like,
I remember, I don't know if I remember the thoughts the first time, but I remember one of the most consistent things was just like, geez, I can't wait to be a grown up. Like, this is what I get to experience, like grown ups get to do this whenever they want, however they want. Like, that's what you're always kind of like pitched, is the idea of like, but the sad reality is, like, that may sound like funny to some people. The sad reality is that robs you of your childhood, because then suddenly you're no longer wanting to like live in the moment as an innocent child. You no longer want to live in that, innocence, enjoy being a child and the wonderful things that can become with being a little one. Suddenly you're attracted to being an adult, the sexual immorality and the lust and things like that. You get exposed to it, and that's not something you're supposed to struggle with at that age. That's just reality is that's not, and it just completely rewired my brain chemistry.
Yeah, and that's some same thing that kind of happened with me. And I think a lot of people, the scary thing is you don't know how porn really affects you mentally in those days. I remember the way I stumbled into sinful adult content was just a pop-up on the computer screen. I was playing a computer game, and then from there I clicked on it. I saw Mario, Superman, Spider-Man pop up, pixelated very fast, and as soon as I clicked on it, it took me to this site. Now, for the sake of those who are watching who are curious, I'm not going to mention the name of the site, but from then on, it just kind of affected the way I saw things, the way I even looked at people. And I was so curious that I started feeling something I had never felt before. And I didn't know what it was, but I liked it. I'm okay. Well, this is different. I get to see naked women. Oh yeah, this is different. And that's the thing. You don't really know how it can really affect you, as you move on in life. But now you say you got married. Okay, you're now an adult. How long, did your wife know when you got married? Is this something that you guys had a conversation about, like, hey, I struggle with this, or did you keep it a secret from her?
So she knew that it was a struggle. I would say it was probably sometime during 2017. I remember because I remember the job I was working at. We weren't believers yet. We hadn't come to Christ yet. And we were just, we were having intimacy struggles because I just wasn't interested. Because like I was too busy, in my free time watching pornography. And that was taking up my desires to be intimate with my wife. And, we weren't believers, but already at that point, we had already seen, the repercussions of what it does and how it can ruin a relationship. I remembered about a year prior to that, I had a conversation with a friend who was not also a believer, but he used to have a chronic porn addiction. I mean, would just watch it anywhere and everywhere, no matter who was around. Didn't care. He'd be sitting there on his phone. And I remember he told me once, with his, fiance at the time, that he's like, I have to stop watching porn. He's like, it's ruining my relationship. Like, I have no interest in being intimate with my fiance. And, that was when, even from someone who's living in the world who isn't a believer, recognized the repercussions of his actions, who recognized the damage it was causing to his mental chemistry. And I know it was sometime around 2017, after being with my wife for about, by that point, we're together about 3 years. Off and on, I'd periodically go through stages of watching it and struggles with it. And it got to that point where that's where it realized, like, okay, this is a problem. Now, sad reality is I had no problem putting it down then. Like, as an unbeliever, I had no issue whatsoever turning away from it and saying, like, okay, I'm done. But suddenly you fast forward to being a believer, and it's a daily struggle. Like, it really is. It's a daily struggle. Men, I think most believers probably, like, they see a beautiful woman wearing skimpy clothes. It's hard not to look. It really is. That's a temptation that's always going to be there. So.
So when you got married, while you were while you were yet not saved, you could put it down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could say no.
I remember.
Why were you able to do that? How come?
I think because the enemy wasn't there whispering over your shoulder, like, do it again, because, you know, he already had you in his grasp anyway.
Could it also be because you were already married, so it's not like you guys are fornicating, right? So you guys are doing it in the context of marriage. You were having sex. Did your wife at any moment feel insecure about the fact that you were watching porn, or at that moment, or she was cool?
At the time, she didn't say if she did, but I know later on down the road, she admitted that that made her feel a type of way. Like, am I not good enough for him? Like, is he not attracted to me anymore? You know, that was something that later on down the road. So I'm sure at that point, even she felt some degree of like inadequacy, which was never the case. It was never the problem. It's just, you know, you just grow up so used to something, it's hard to put it down.
Now, let me ask you this, because that's a good point. It's like when you were watching, when you were addicted to this thing while you were married, why were you, outside of just the addiction, do you know exactly if it was a desire that you were running after, your wife couldn't satisfy you? Do you know exactly what it was that caused you to keep going back to it, even in marriage?
Yeah. Man, I don't know. It definitely wasn't that my wife couldn't satisfy me. That was never the issue. I think it's just really just like something different. Like, you just always, you know, I think, at least me, I can speak on my part. Throughout life, like, you go through seasons where life becomes a little stale, which I think most people probably get to that. Like, not in an intimacy perspective, but just in general, right? Like, life grows a little stale when you work at the same job for a long time. You make the same habits every single day. You go through the same routines day by day, you know, year by year. And that's where I think, like, it's on a smaller scale mentally that's where it is. It's like kind of the boredom of the things you do on a regular basis. That's not make it okay. Like, it never changed my attraction towards my wife. Like, I was still very attracted to her. That was never the issue. It was just always just like, shake it up a little bit. Let's shake it up a little bit and like watch something different, you know? And like that, I think that's really, really something deep along those lines. I've never given that much thought, but I would say that if I had to guess, it would probably be along those lines of just wanting something different, you know, trying to experience something different, something new, like needing a new dopamine fix.
Hold up. Did you remember that episode of Friends with when Ross cheated? They were on a break,
No.
And then Ross and Rachel, pretty much, Ross thought that we're done, but Rachel was just, no, we just taking a break. And then Rachel ends up finding out that Ross slept with somebody else. And then in the process, Rachel ends up asking Ross, like, so how was it? Right?
Oh my goodness.
And then Ross was like, I don't know. It was just different. And the entire, everybody was just gasping like, why did you say that? Just don't say nothing, because you had Chandler, Joey, Phoebe, all of them that were listening. I don't know if you've seen that episode.
No, I haven't
You're not a
seen
friend
it.
person,
No.
are you?
I watched it here and there, but never like sat down and watched like whole episodes at a time.
Yeah, bro,
Like,
you
I
need
just catch it here and there.
You need to live a little.
Yeah, it was honestly, yeah, man.
So when you say
might have
it's
been a
different,
big,
that's
yeah.
that's some.
No, and it wasn't even a situation of wanting different than my wife. Like, it was just literally, it was something about like the dopamine fix.
Wait, so you're like, you still love your wife, but you just wanted something else.
No, it wasn't even, I don't think it was sexual. And like, at the root of it, I don't think it was a sexual issue so much as it was just a heart issue of always seeking for the fresh new thing.
Okay.
And that was pouring into other areas of my life, which also poured into the sexual aspect of my marriage. It was never an issue with, like, at all, not even in the slightest that I ever want another woman. Not in the slightest has it ever crossed my mind to cheat. It was just simply like a new dopamine fix. Always seeking a new dopamine fix. Because that's what it is. It's an instant dopamine fix. It's that instant gratification that you can't get. And I would have never thought to cheat on my wife. But, you know, that's what it really, I think that's what it boiled down to, was just like, well, you know, like, it's just a new dopamine fix. It's just like when I was, you know, playing video games. You get tired of the same old game, you want a new game. But with like your wife, like, you don't just go and get a new wife. That's not something, right? Like, to me, I've always valued her. She's my life partner. I would never in the slightest bit do anything that knowingly would like ruin that. You know, she's always been like, from the day I met her and realized like she was ready for marriage, she was it. She was the only one, and that's still to this day. Like I've never crossed my mind to even think about wanting another woman. So it's not. I don't think that desire is sexual in nature. I think it's just like the sin nature of lacking contentment, like not having that contentment, right? And the Bible says that, you know, contentment with godliness is great gain. But I was lacking that. I didn't understand what that contentment with godliness looked like, and that's, I think, was the root of the issue. It was never anything other than that, honestly. So
Yeah, wow. Okay, because now you're married. You have two beautiful kids. I'm trying to go a little deeper because I feel like there's some people that this addiction for them is like they can't fight it. And then I saw a video of Forrest Frank recently talking about how his addiction to porn. Also, when he got married to his wife, he wanted to do certain things with his wife that he saw in porn. And so it's like, okay, how do you rationalize it? Because not even rationalize it, but what do you think is happening in the mind of a person? Was that ever your situation? Because I'll speak to me. When I got married, I knew how to do certain things because I was exposed to porn. I knew some of the positions. I knew some of what to do to kind of arouse because I had been exposed to porn. And the world will tell you, hey, this is good. I had a friend that told me, Leland, you need to at least date 5 different people, 5 different races. You got to try all of them, thick, fat, skinny. You got to try them because it's kind of like, then you know what you really want. I've heard people tell me like some women are very stuff, you know, and I'm trying to keep it PG, but other women are not so. So it's like, you need to try. So it's kind of like, did that affect you guys? And you don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want, but it's like, did that affect you guys by you viewing porn? Did it make you want to practice certain things? And did your wife feel uncomfortable?
no, I mean, I never did anything that made her feel uncomfortable. Like we had certain boundaries that we knew since we came together before being believers. We already knew what boundaries not to cross. Like we knew what each other was interested in, and fortunately, we seemed to be pretty much along the same lines in every way. So like we never had that issue. But yeah, I mean, it'd be lying if you didn't. If I said like things you see you didn't want to try, but there was nothing that was like ever like. To an extreme, you know. There was a point where we did attempt, and this was as unbelievers, to watch pornography together to arouse one another, to get aroused. And it was just the most awkward and uncomfortable thing that I'm so thankful that never stuck, because that could have been a whole nother like obstacle as believers to have to overcome, you know, like if you become dependent on that. Like, not that we ever had the issue, but it was just one of the things where like we were trying things. We were like, oh, we're in our experimental phase, you know, like let's experiment things as a young couple. Yeah. Let's try new things. Let's keep it fresh. Yeah. But yeah.
Now again, another thing is, did porn, or did, you know, when you were watching it, when you were very involved and addicted to it, did it lower your sex drive, your libido, or
100%.
You see, and that's something I don't think a lot of people talk about, is the fact that it just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? You have a wife that you can be intimate with, but yet when you don't want to be intimate with her, you'd rather be intimate with somebody on a screen and then pleasure yourself. So it's like I do. That's how I know that porn, this thing is so wicked. It's like, you have, for example, somebody offered you steak. You got a whole steak at home, but you settling for McDonald's chicken nuggets that you know is made out of trash.
Or a hungry man frozen steak.
Exactly. You know, so I don't get it. Like I'm gonna tell you something. One of my friends had told me that sometimes he would watch porn because of the rejection that he suffered. So for example, if he ever felt like, yo, life is kind of hard right now, or if he's ever in a situation where he's just stressed, or maybe him and his wife are not in good terms, he may indulge in porn just to try to cope with it. And it's like it's kind of like a drug thing. Like you go back to it just because you need that fix, but it never fixes you though.
No, not at all.
It never fixes you. So I'm trying to figure out, with somebody now, at what point did you get to the realization like, okay, yo, Joseph, I need to change. I need to be better. Was it after you had your children and you saw that you were a father of 2 girls, or was it a situation where you just had a conversation with your wife, or was it just a conviction of the Holy Spirit altogether?
Yeah, man. I remember when Trey was pregnant with Riley, my first one, and I remember telling her that was something I wanted to take control of, because I was like about to bring daughters into the world, and these are other men's daughters that we're looking at, and like at what point are we welcoming, and this was even before like really understanding the supernatural, the spiritual aspect of Christianity, right? The Bible says we're like there's like principalities and powers kind of operating behind the scenes, and that I didn't even understand that then, but I think to some degree I understood that, like, me having this struggle and looking at these things, looking at other men's daughters, could that have the same effect to where it in turn later in life has that effect on me, where other men are trying to look at my daughters, God forbid I'll raise my daughters up to know their value, to be godly women, and to know God and not have those same issues. But just understanding that when we were pregnant with our first, that was where I was realizing like something's got to change. Like this isn't something that can continue forever. Like these cycles have to break, and even then it still took a few years to break, right? And of course, like, I've had stumbles along the way even after like breaking it, right? Like it's a daily struggle. It really is, like, especially in a hypersexualized culture. Like, you turn on your TV, you're seeing sexualized ads.
Everywhere.
Everywhere you go, everything's sexualized, so you have to be on constant guard about the triggers.
Back then, it was harder for you to even get content
to
watch, because it kind of was taboo. It's kind of like buying condoms. Everybody looks at you funny because why do you need condoms, in a sense, in a world like if you're with somebody that you really care about? So now you got OF, and you got TikTok, you got Instagram, and God forbid you got Twitter. It has no guardrails.
Yeah, I don't even have Twitter anymore. I got rid of it for that reason.
I have Twitter. I don't use Twitter. I have it because I was trying to build a network, but I don't use Twitter. And funny thing is, sometimes there are times when I go through, because people think because you stop watching porn, that porn just automatically, the desires leave.
No, not at all.
I'll give you a quick story. There was a time where the images were just so constant. I'm trying to stop, but for some reason, every time I go into the prayer closet or I'm trying to talk to God, all I see is booty cheeks just popping up in my face, man. and I'm thinking to myself, why is it now that all the special tags I used to type is popping up now? All these pictures that I saw is popping up now when I'm trying to pray. And this is how you know it's an attack from the enemy. This is how you know it's a demonic thing. Because if it's genuinely natural, being in high school, I had a teacher tell me that watching porn is okay. It is fine, because that's how it's biology. You're supposed to watch it because, it's natural for you to feel the way you feel. And I think a lot of people feel that way. But what a lot of people don't know is how it can affect your marriage, how it can affect the way you look at people, how it can affect even specific areas in your life. And so now that you are saved, you've given your life to Christ, you're married, you have a healthy marriage going on. What was the, because I know you already answered like what made it, but how did you finally make it stick? How did you finally get to the place where you're like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't need this anymore.
I mean, man, you have to cut out the triggers. Like you really do. I've spoken with a lot of the young guys, who have had like similar struggles, prayed for them, and it's always the same thing. I ask them, like, what is your trigger? Do you have triggers on social media? Does that cause you to stumble? Yes. Get rid of it. Like if that's your real stumbling block, get rid of it.
You can't be out here following certain people, man.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to delete your Facebook altogether, but at least delete the app, break that stronghold. Sometimes you just need to break it, right? Like I go through habits sometimes and might catch myself scrolling on Facebook for an hour. And I'm like, just killed an hour of my time. Delete. Like just wait, break the habit. Then I'll find myself for a few days, like 2 or 3 days, reaching for Facebook, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I deleted it. And that's when like that was exactly what it was. You got to break those strongholds. You have to take control. There's also great resources out, like Covenant Eyes. That's a great resource.
Yeah, they need to sponsor us.
$17. Yeah, I think it's like $17, $18. Pay for a subscription, block all your content, protect yourself. Get a friend or family member, to put in the password locks, and don't, that way, if you ever want to get into it, you got to ask them to get into it.
Oh yeah.
Like create yourself an accountability system is the most important thing. All right, and that's the biggest thing, because even if you get your deliverance, don't trust yourself. I would always say don't trust yourself, because when you're in your, I remember Apostle told me the reason why he'll never, even if like with wine, even if somebody's okay with it and has like great self-control, he's like, what happens when a crisis happens in life? Like what happens when a very close significant other, that's why he doesn't condone like even moderation in alcohol. And it's not even about the sin factor for him. It's about the self-control. He's like, so if you never have it, the temptation will never be there to like overindulge. And I can understand that to a degree, right? Like I can see where, to your point, right? You said you spoke to a friend, and when he has like frustration or they have a disagreement, when he gets in an argument with his wife, things of that nature, he goes to that to cope. Like that's a coping mechanism. And reality is, like, as humans, we're going to reach for something to cope.
Oh, absolutely.
So, for me, most of the time it's the gym. Like, that's my cope. I have a really tough day at work. Trey's gotten to the point where she'll tell me, like, I won't even want to go to the gym at times. I had such a tough day, and I'll sit at home moping around. She's like, why don't you just go to the gym? Yeah. You'll feel better when you're done. And I always do. That's like my cope. Find something, a healthy coping mechanism. But also don't trust yourself. Like, put in safeguards in place to protect yourself, to protect your spiritual walk. There's no shame in saying, like, I need to protect myself. I need to have an accountability partner. There's no shame in that. That's what it's all about. That's what it's supposed to be for.
I read recently that they did a recent study, about 77% of Christians watch porn weekly. Right, and these are people that they go to church, that they love their community, and I think there's a stigma or this thing where it's like, you they look down upon you. But when you talked about it earlier, we live in an overly sexualized. You can't go places without. The other day, I'm at the outlets, and I'm walking down. Now, granted, it wasn't a woman. But it was a dude in his boxers with his dingling just up in my face on a poster on the side of the store. And I'm thinking to myself, that is some Diddy stuff, bro. It is just, it is some Diddy stuff. And I was so upset. I was so angry because you have kids that walk there.
Yeah.
You have young girls, young boys who even struggle with their sexuality. These things are triggers. They're triggers. Joe, I'm telling you, I used to watch cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
I stopped watching certain animes because they triggered me, man. You're laughing, but
because we've had this conversation.
They trigger me.
I get it.
And one thing I didn't have back then, I didn't have Covenant Eyes. So what I did was I told a friend of mine, hey, put a passcode in my phone and block all the sites. And I put all the sites that I would go to. So even now, whenever the desires come and I have an urge to want to watch porn, I've been freed for a while, okay? But I was addicted for 10 years. And I think some people think that the addiction, if you're addicted to something for a decade, you have to unlearn it, and you have you got to detox, and you have to it's like an AA. You have to consistently go to the AA meetings, surround yourself with people who are growing, and find community.
There's a reason why too. I remember years ago. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brandon Carter. He's a fitness influencer. Also went by like King Keto. He's a big keto fanatic. But I remember he had posted something about like the neural pathways, and so after he had posted like a video talking about it, it sparked me to kind of look into it. So the reason why is like there's actual brain scan images that your brain creates pathways that are habits. That's how your habits are, and it's just a line written over itself over and over and over, and you have multiple different neural pathways as they're just continuously writing over one another. So you have 10 years worth of neural pathways just writing over each other one thing at a time. That's 10 years worth of habit you have to unlearn, and you have to reverse the damage little by little. And it really does take time. It takes time to break those bad habits. It's really not something that's just like, you don't flip a switch or snap your fingers and it's gone. You have to put in the time and effort. And this is why, again, I say protect yourself. Put in the safeguards in place so that when you have that moment of relapse or you have that tough day, or you see that poster at, walking down the mall that kind of triggers you, you're not like triggered to go and look for it. Like you have a safeguard in place to protect you from it. Because sometimes like you have years and years of trauma built up, and it really does rewire the brain.
Yeah. No, I know maybe another time I'll get to go into deeper of some of the things, the wicked things I used to do.
Yeah.
Dude, I would be on the phone with my mom while watching porn.
Oh my gosh.
That's wicked. That's darkness. I hope she doesn't see this, but this is, when I think, it is disgusting, but that's just the way when something has a hold on you and you can't break loose on your own. And, talk a little bit about people who think that, because I believe in the supernatural sovereignty of God, where he could take away the desire. But I also believe that, we have to work out our salvation.
Yeah.
And sanctification is a process. So talk to those people and who have to, who are just so spiritual, they think all you need to do is fast and pray. And automatically, once you get out from that prayer closet and that fasting, it just becomes easier. What is, like, talk to them people, because I got my own opinion. I just want to hear what you guys think.
I've seen people talk about it, like social media, like influencers and stuff like that. I've seen some like Christian influencers say like, I don't have a desire, I don't have a struggle with lust anymore. That's behind me. I don't know if I would,
Yeah, I don't know
go
about
that far, but hey, like I don't know their walk. Maybe they do, right? So,
I think it's cap.
yeah, so
I'm sorry.
I'll say this. I've seen a situation you were a part of that testimony of praying for me and having a radical transformation that completely flipped my life upside down. You were there at the retreat in 2020 when you prayed for me, and that was when I had it. It was a radical transformation. Suddenly the interest for pornography was gone. Suddenly I went home, my desires to read the word and pray were there. Like, yeah, so like that was it. It was a deliverance. And you didn't even pray for me for deliverance in general. You just spoke a word that God put on your heart that I had been praying to God about. And you spoke it so specifically about, that God was not going to let me go, even though I had been praying like, Lord, just let me go. Like, if this is the condemnation that comes with Christianity, is that every time I struggle and I feel so much shame and guilt, like, I don't even want it, and then you prayed for me. And I remember I felt God's presence in that moment when you spoke those words. And it was just, I remember it was the sweetest relief. I felt so light, like the burden was suddenly gone. And it's so hard to explain to people. I can explain it all day long, but you just, when you've experienced it, and if you haven't experienced it, all I can tell you is it's the sweetest, most relieving feeling. And, from that moment it was gone. But I'll tell you this, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, there will be triggers that will start to tempt you to come back. And the enemy's always going to tempt you to come back. The enemy tempted Jesus, and told him, if you worship me, I'll make you ruler over everything. You know, so if he was willing to tempt Jesus, you don't think he's willing to tempt you just because you received a deliverance. You're fooling yourself. You know, and that's where I think the issue comes in. You do have to maintain it. And this is why, even if you get that radical deliverance and you suddenly lose interest, I would still tell you to protect yourself from yourself, because we're fallen. You know, it would be foolish to think that we can do that. And you're right. You know, we have to work at our salvation with fear and trembling. And we should absolutely be in fear and trembling that we might stumble again. You know, and that's not something that we should take lightly. And we should absolutely put more efforts and safeguards. And even I speak to myself that there should be more like effort to protect yourself from those things, from triggers and things of that nature, like social media, which I've been more in the last few months, very adamantly, like I see something that's even remotely slightly sexualized, I'm like, not interested, get it out, like get it off my feed, because that's what social media does. It tries to get you to slow down and look at one thing just so it can feed you more. And you look at one is all it takes before your timeline's flooded with that junk.
The thing with that is you don't even need to, like, with other things you need to work. Like, you know, with if you're somebody who's into soccer or into sports, you need to sometimes work to get your algorithm. But with lust, you know, when it comes to
it's there in
women,
everything.
Man, or if you're a woman,
if you watch sports and you're attracted to sports, there's women wearing skimpy clothes playing sports. If you like the gym, there's women wearing skimpy clothes in the gym. I don't go to social media for fitness content anymore.
I feel like we got to go to the gym with blinders on, because that's another area where it's hard for men who struggle with lust, who struggle with that addiction, to break free. But you said something earlier, which was, you know, you can't even trust yourself. It's kind of like not putting confidence in the flesh, like the Lord says. So I do believe with porn, I just want it to be a thing where the church is not looking down on people.
Yeah, for sure.
And people can have a place of safety, because I know Jesus would never condemn, because sexual immorality, you sin against your own body. That's why you feel the way you feel. You just feel so filthy and dirty. But at the same time, it's like people, you could justify it, say, well, it's natural, all right? You know, it's okay. I could masturbate. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, I'm just relieving myself. But what you don't understand is that it's a spiritual separation. It taints your spirit, and it kind of limits that connection that you have with God when you consistently keep on doing it. And my thing is, I would love for the churches to be more transparent, because there's so many people who struggle with it, but it goes undetected. Nobody even knows. You could not tell. There were people who never knew that I was struggling. My mom, I was with her for years, didn't know I was battling with this thing, and she was a Christian. You know what I mean? So this is why I think a community is important, where you could open up and talk about this. Even married men who struggle with porn. I don't think, Apostle always says, I don't think that lust ends when you get saved. I don't think it does. I don't think that you could say, I don't struggle with lust anymore. I think that's just, you know.
I would argue it's worse.
Yeah.
Because, like, at least for me, it feels worse. It may not be worse in a sense of, like, you know, because obviously when you're in the world, you don't care. Like, so you're probably doing it subconsciously, not realizing it. But it feels worse when you're a believer, because you catch yourself every time you do it.
Exactly.
Or every time you're tempted to do it.
The Holy Spirit ain't gonna leave you alone, man.
Yeah. So to me, like, it feels a lot worse as a believer. And I mean, it doesn't leave when you're married either.
Oh no!
You know, like the temptation and the struggle. No. It doesn't leave when you're married. You can have the baddest wife on the planet and be a firm believer, very rooted in Christ. But you see a beautiful woman, you're going to be attracted. It's in our nature. Like, we're attracted. You know,
you're gonna look.
Women are attracted to men. Men are attracted to women.
You're gonna look.
There's going to be temptation to look. And I'm, you know, what is it? 1 Corinthians, I think. Just, you know, like what is it? No temptation, which is, you know,
talking about that.
No temptation that you've.
A man that Jesus hasn't been through.
Yes, exactly. I was just reading it to another brother the other night. Sorry, my brain blanked out. But, you know, no temptation that is that has come on you is uncommon to man. So I think that's something that many people struggle with, and we also have to be more willing to talk about it.
Even if you look at some of the greats in the Bible, let's look at Samson, let's look at David, let's look at Solomon. These are, you can consider, giants when the Bible recorded of, and we see what happened with Samson, we saw what happened with David, we saw what happened with Solomon, and that's just when people are after their own lust. You know what I mean? And I think for me, my desire is never feeling like you made it. You know what I mean? Because I remember I used to tell people, I'm like, if the woman that you consider your type, let's say you married, but you got a type, the woman that you consider your type, was to pull up, butt naked, greased up, what you gonna do in a room with you? What you gonna do? If they
That's why I always
butt
say,
naked, like what you
I
gonna
always say I would never put myself in a position of even being close to like being tempted. Even before being a believer, like I used to have a friend who used to say, "How are you loyal? I don't understand how you do it." I'm like, it's easy. Just don't put yourself in a position to be tempted, and it's really simple. And like I've never thought about trying to put myself in that position either. Like to me, I don't know, maybe it's just like a different generation, a different type of parenting. I don't know. I wasn't even raised to think about multiple women. Like I've never once in my life, even as an unbeliever, thought about being with multiple women or, having a side chick, like that's just, I don't understand it. I don't get it, but hey, it seems to be a thing. So.
Oh, it is. It's a thing with the modern day men. Some of us, we just can't keep our 7-Elevens closed. You know what I mean? I'm serious, man. We just have that thing open 24/7. But yeah, I think this was very helpful. If let's say there's a man out there or a boy, a teenager, or just a young adult that is trying to navigate all of this. Maybe they're not a Christian, maybe they are a Christian. They're thinking about dating, but they have this sinful lifestyle. They're hiding in the dark. No, they don't want nobody to know, and they feel condemned. What is one thing you can say, or something you can encourage them with, just to keep them, going? What would you say to that young man or that person that is in that lifestyle?
First thing I would say is find a support system and bring it to the light. That's the most important thing. That's when you find real freedom. You never feel like you're free from it. Like you can go weeks and maybe even months on your own, putting it down and staying away from it, but eventually it comes back because you never dealt with the core issue and you never really addressed the problem. And I would say you need to bring it to the light and deal with that shame, that guilt. That's the biggest thing, right? Because that's those emotions fester. They build inside of you, they fester. It's a disease, it's an infection. And once it builds up, it doesn't go away. It gets worse and worse and worse if you don't treat it. And you have to treat it. And in my experience personally, the best way to treat it is to seek help. And that in that way of support, like, finding people around you that support you, whatever that might look like, right? Some people go to the gym, that's their way of getting out of it, but I would still say you have to find someone that you can be transparent about and find a group of people that you can talk to about it. Just the same way I was listening to a podcast of an addict the other day talking about how running became kind of his fix eventually, but he was an addict and he went through cocaine, heroin, and tried all these different things. And he talked about how he didn't grow up on drugs. It was just something he tried once, and that led to another. Before you know it, he's addicted within weeks. In less than 2 months, he's addicted and hooked and has to have his fix without withdrawals. And what he talked about though was the 12-step program. And there's a reason why it's so successful. And, to some degree, I think he's right? Like there's a reason that those programs work. You have to find the support system. Yeah. Support system, I think, is the most important thing that most people neglect or don't realize that you need if you're struggling with that and you need to get a grasp on reality. That's what I think is the most important thing, is a support system. And maybe you don't know what that looks like. That's okay. Again, reach out for help. Speak to someone that you know that you can confide in, that no matter what, they're not going to look down on you or shame you or make you feel guilty about your shortcomings, because we all have them. We all have shortcomings. There's many people that have probably shamed other people for the same struggle that they've been going through themselves.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I will never shame a young man for going through that, because I was that young man, and I was so many times, going through those struggles, wondering, when am I ever going to get out of this? It was the worst. It was the worst feeling that you can feel as a man, because like, it's one thing, that maybe it's wired in our nature. Men don't like to feel helpless. I think
absolutely,
it's in our nature to want to feel to some degree in control. And when you get something like that just takes control over, that you feel like you have no control and you can't say no matter how hard you try, because the enemy's always chirping in your ear, just one more time. It's okay, just do it one more time. You can quit after this. And then that one time comes around, you quit for a few days, and then it's again, just one more time. This will be the last time, I promise. And I promise you, the control, you never get it.
I heard somebody say, I think it was Bryce Crawford, but he's a YouTuber. He said sin seems easy to stop until you have to stop. Like it seems like you can stop it at any time until you actually have to stop. So going into this lifestyle of addicted to being addicted to watching porn, at first you think, it's just a little puff of nicotine, but when you actually want to stop, that's when it's hard. And I think you summed it up very well, community. And I would even add that I think outside of community, Joseph said it earlier, you have to put in guardrails. Like you have to put, there's a reason why in football you wear helmets. There's a reason why you have pads. There's a reason why in baseball you have headgear. There's a reason why, cruise ship have lifeboats, and you have lifeguards in pools. These are just guardrails, because at any moment, at any time, something could happen, and you need to make sure that you have put things in place to get you the victory. The Bible says, resist the devil and he will flee. Resisting comes with you being practical but spiritual at the same time. So pray, but after you pray, don't watch Love Island. Like, what are you doing? Don't go watch certain things that can trigger you and take you back to that place where you just came out from the closet praying about. You know what I mean? Don't give a woman a ride by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Don't be in positions, especially if you're married, where you out here, it could potentially affect your relationship. And if your wife doesn't know that you watch porn, Joe, do you think they should tell their partner?
Yes.
Absolutely. So be open.
And I'm not going to deny, it's hard to tell your wife.
Very hard.
It's very hard to tell your wife. There's been times that I didn't tell my wife and I had to wait for her to ask. But I tell you what, if you don't tell her and she asks, you better be honest. Yeah. And I promise you, you will feel so much relief when you do. Yeah. I won't be the first. I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not always the most willing to go and say, hey, I just, did that. Yeah. But, I know that she'll ask, because she knows it's been a problem. That's something that I was an addict with, and that was something that was a struggle. And she's asked periodically, have you? And the hardest thing to do is to admit it. But you feel so much relief when you do, so that's important. That's a very important thing. Be honest.
Be honest, man. I'm so happy that we had this conversation. I'm so grateful for this conversation. And if you found value in this conversation, and you want to join our community, we have our Discord. You can join by clicking the link in the description. Brother Joseph will be there. This is just that community we're talking about, right? So you can have an opportunity to meet with men. And we're not opposed to women, but this is more of we're catering to men, because this channel is for the men. So share this video with somebody, join the Discord, become part of the community, because you need, even God didn't create the earth by himself. He said, let us come together. And he also said, it's not good for man to be alone. You can't overcome by yourself. Let's just help you, get you the points you need. It's an alley-oop. So join the Discord community, get an opportunity to meet with Joe. This is not his last time. He'll be back. But yeah, man, thank you for coming.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me. It was a blessing.
Yeah. So we'll see you soon.
Amen.
Peace.